Hey, everybody, we have an incredible show today with Dr. Eckel. Wow, we just finished, and I'm so glad he's a neurological specialist because my brain needs a little health after that. That was a wild ride and an incredible show, which really gives us a heartfelt, warm hug of understanding and knowing that there are people that are concentrated on knowing and diving into brain health and how to prevent Parkinson's, how to prevent neurological disorders that are so devastating. This gentleman's story is not a small one. He's got an incredible passion and a personal story for why he's here. He's a naturopath and acupuncturist in Oregon, with one of the most successful medical practices in the United States, and does focus on brain degeneration and neurological health. So I really encourage you to listen to this whole show. It's a little bit longer than most, but he truly puts the heart back in medicine. And you know that we talk about that a lot. And he uses so many great analogies. He's got a great book. He talks about how we can really enhance our health through sleep. And there's so many other things that you're going to learn in today's episode about brain health, about telomeres, about living to be, oh, wait and see how long we should live to live and thrive on this planet as a human organism. Wait till you hear the answer. Join us for this episode of The Beats with Dr. Greg Eckel. So welcome back to The Beats with Kelly Kennedy, and I'm very excited. I'm always excited. When am I not excited? But Dr. Greg Eckel is joining us today, and he's a newer friend of mine and colleague that I'm very excited about bringing this information to everybody, because we get so many questions about brain health and neurodegeneration, and everybody's concerned about Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and it's an obvious concern, and it's been so more prevalent. I have actually two uncles that have been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and I'm very aware of it being a toxicity level, but I'm sure that Dr. Eckel is going to brighten our world in many ways for our brains today and talk to us about so many things. He is very well versed in this world. He has a true passion for it as both an acupuncturist and a naturopath, but he has a personal story that he's going to talk about it hopefully a little bit today. He's got a book. He's got summits. He's got so much going on. He's been on tons of other podcasts, and he has a personal connection with neurological conditions. And again, I will ask him to tell that story because I don't want to take anything away. But he wrote something, and when we ask questions about what people sometimes want to talk about on the podcast, he wrote something that those of you know me know that since I was 5, I knew somehow I was going to live to be 120. I did not know until years later that it was actually written in the Bible that our bodies was designed. In Genesis, it says that we were designed to live to be 120. But Dr. Eckel has raised the bar for me. And he says, can we really live to be 150? And my thing is, I only want to live to be 150 if I can flow into it, meaning I live quality of life, happy, exuberant, thriving like I am now. So Dr. Eckel, thank you for joining us. And let's dive in to your background a little bit, your story, if you would unpack that, and how we can live to be 150.
Sure. I love that. And thanks for having me on, Kelly. And, you know, I'm going to start with that because it is so fun to talk about. You know, when you talk to groups of people and you say publicly, like I've gone on national television and said, I want to live to 150, you know, like jaws drop and there's silence and people look at you like, are you insane, doctor? Do you see what these old people look like? It's like, no, not like that. I want to do it with my brain, with my brawn, and with community. And it really is. We're living at such a magnificent time. And with the technologies that are coming on board, I really do feel it's possible. And, you know, I've been, I guess, privileged to sit with 90-year-olds, 100-year-old patients. And a lot of them say, you know, if I knew I was going to live this long, I think I would have taken better care of myself when I was younger. And it has been such an insight to me of like, hey, this is wisdom here. Like these 90-year-olds are telling me they wish they would have taken better care of themselves. So, you know, at 50, I'm feeling pretty good. I've had my telomeres measured, which is the length of the cellular age of our cells. They tell me I'm 32. That feels pretty good. I feel like I'm 18 some days, but it's a good way of promoting. It does change your mindset. So if you try this on at home, say, I've always asked people, how old do you think you're going to be when you die? And whatever age comes to mind. So whatever that age is, and then, okay, well, what do you think the year before your death looks like? And most people say, I'm ambulatory. I've got my mind. I've got, great grandkids or grandkids and, family around, and there's a lot of love. It's like, great. So if that's the year before your death, you think you're really going to die that next year? So basically, in that conversation, we add 7 years onto your lifespan on looking at it like, no, actually, you're going to live. You have the potential. So I don't want to put limiting beliefs on myself. And the flip side of the coin is if I don't make it to 150, big whoop. I'm not around to think about it. So so I just wanted to
start. You never know. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I wanted 8 million. I only got 7 million. Oh, woe is me.
Yeah.
Like you want to live to 150, live to 130, but it's awesome quality of life.
Yeah.
You're not upset.
Oh, darn, I didn't make it. Yeah, no, that doesn't happen that way. So it really changes behaviors inherently in my day to day and how I treat myself, how I treat others, and that whole aspect. And really how I got there is my personal story. How I got into being a brain regenerative specialist. I've been in private clinical practice here in Portland, Oregon at Nature Cures Clinic for 21 years. I started medical school in 1996 and graduated in 2001 with both degrees, a naturopathic doctorate and a master's of science in Oriental medicine. And for 16 of those years, I was really general practice. I mean, I said I specialized in difficult and recalcitrant conditions. You did not want to be the interesting patient in my clinic. You still do not want to be the interesting patient in my clinic because I see people that have been to all of the specialists, Mayo and Cleveland and around the globe, and then they wind up here. And so because we have a different approach in that we treat whole heart-centered dynamic beings moving through time and space. We don't treat diseases or pieces of parts.
Hold that right there. Yep. That was written down, and that is a beautiful sentence. First of all, when we first talked,
yep,
and I agree. People ask me all the time, "What are you?" And my comment is always, "Well, I'm a human."
Yeah.
And you said the same thing. You're like, "Okay, I'm just a human. We're going to speak human today."
Yeah.
And then that verbiage of what you just said is so beautiful. I specialize in treating people as whole dynamic beings moving through time and space.
Yeah. Heart-centered beings.
Heart-centered. Yes, I love that you've added that. That is beautiful because that is really unpack that, y'all. When have you ever heard, and I've never heard a doctor ever speak that language. Yeah. And that's beautiful. And I don't mean to interrupt your story, but that is an incredible thing for people to really understand that you meet somebody right where they're at, wherever they are at.
Yeah.
You come at from them from here, from the heart, as well as from your brain, but you're meeting them from your heart.
Yes. Yeah. And it's an amazing depth of information. Of course, like you look at kind of the doctors in the box, and with no offense, there's a lot of great physicians in the Western medical canon here. But the soul and the heart is sucked out of medicine at this point. They don't have any time. They're running. They got to see so many people on the managed care system. And it's a hard space to be. The suicide rate for physicians is very high, I think, as a result of that. They're not able to express their humanity. Now, some of them are, and some of them think outside of the box and all of that. That's great. But that I really want to put the heart back into medicine. And so that's, I think, my piece of the puzzle here, what I'm doing. So 16 years, went through kind of, I grew a very large naturopathic clinic, one of the largest in North America. Had all kinds of, I had 7 physicians on staff at one point. I've gone from small to big to small to big. You kind of do that for a variety of reasons. And I met the love of my life in that journey. And I didn't even know that love could exist on the planet that way, Sarieah. And Sarieah was a certified nurse midwife, nurse practitioner, and graduated top of her class from the #1 school in the country. Like this dynamic 6'1" dreadlocked woman. Women would come out of the gyne room like doing a little jig in a song. It was like, what is going on in there? Like you just put in an IUD, or the woman had her pap smear and they're like cackling and laughing. And I mean, she's a really special person. And over 5 years of practice together, uh, she joined the practice later, and you know, uh, we started staying late in the practice, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, we've been here 5 years and I've never been at work until 7 o'clock doing charts. She said, hey, stop riding me. I've got very difficult patients. I'm like, okay. But then it became really clear. It's like, no, something's going on here. She was having memory difficulties, and it was really insidious, like really quick, like within 3 months time. Like she basically was on top of her game to really repeating herself over and over and over again. Walking around on the streets, just not knowing where she was. It was really sad. And it was a rapidly progressing dementia. And we started with the known suspects. Maybe it's perimenopause. This could be total hormonal change. Maybe it's mold or mycotoxins. Maybe there's some stealth infection that we've missed. So we kind of exhausted our resources here. And so I went out for some expert opinions. I saw firsthand. I mean, I've seen it over the years on how fractionated our healthcare system is, but to live it with your loved one where you're really in dire need of support, it's so heartbreaking. It's basically physicians, really well-known physicians saying, oh, no, she's had a psychotic break. She's 43 years old, super young to have a rapidly progressing dementia. And the ominous diagnoses start coming onto the list at that point of, oh, well, it's definitely, maybe it's an autoimmune condition, autoimmune encephalitis, like the words you'd never want to hear, and Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, which is a prion disease. Now, you learn about Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. This is mad cow syndrome that people maybe are more familiar with in cattle. It's a wasting syndrome in deer. It's scrappy in sheep. So all animals have this type of prionic activity, but Creutzfeldt-Jakob, CJD, it's 1 in a million, about 300 cases a year in North America. So seeing and hearing that, I'm talking to physicians at the Cleveland Clinic. Case Western is the prionic surveillance center in North America. Their study is totally telemedicine, observational. And at the end of it, they'll give you a free brain biopsy when your loved one dies. I mean, that's where we're at with this condition. I'm talking to University of Pennsylvania, neuroscientists, specialists in autoinflammatory conditions of the brain, and quickly became, I think, one of the leading experts in prionic activity in the brain out of dire need. I mean, I got the first textbook on prionic diseases, discovered, well, what is that? That's a misfolded protein. There's a lot of conditions, Parkinson's, CJD, Alzheimer's, and dementia with their tau proteins or amyloid plaques, the beta amyloid, misfolded proteins. All of these are misfolded protein disorders and may explain why we've had no major breakthroughs in neurodegeneration. So I put together a program, out of dire need. I have no idea how I did that. It was very stressful. We had 5 kids between the two of us. I had the full medical practice, and I'm doing all of this research out of like, geez, my lovely wife is gone. And I mean, she lost speech. Like it was very, like within 3 months, she was totally gone. Unfortunately, she passed. It was an 18-month journey with living with CJD. That was 3 years ago. Out of it, though, I will tell you, it, in an odd way, it cracked me open as a human being and reinstated my faith. I have such a zest and passion for life at this point. Yeah, grief sucks. It does. And that was my, my story. I'm grateful for every moment I had on the planet with her. Uh, pardon me. That's
Hey, no,
unexpected.
listen, Greg, you're amazing. It's
Yeah.
the fact that you've gotten this far through your story. Those of who listen to my podcast, I cry pretty
Yeah.
much every podcast. And what you've done is you have brought the heart back to it. And
Yeah.
I applaud you, as does our entire audience, because sound to soul, which you have experienced. And I firmly believe this, and our mutual friend, Dr. Christine Schaffner, we all believe this is exactly what's been missing. You know, what you said, the fractioned medical care. And here's a guy, so many people listening to this have been in that scenario, but yet did not have the resources you had and the
Right.
brain power you had. And still we all feel hopeless no matter what we know, when our loved one is escaping us, when they're fading in front of us. And it's not easy to watch. And God bless you and all of us for making that your champion, the reason you show up to work every day, to try to help other people to not have to live that life that you lived, which is exactly why I did this podcast, because
Right.
I grew up in a house with Hodgkin's. My father, I didn't know if I was going to die. I didn't know if I was going to get it and know how to prevent it. Coronavirus starts. I look around and go, shit, nothing's changed for anybody else in the world. They feel exactly how I felt growing up. Are they going to get it? If I get it, am I going to die? And if we take Corona out of the scenario, without Corona, everybody on the planet prior to that was worried about Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and nervous disorders of the brain, because we're watching we're watching so many people deal with this. Unfortunately, your wife went through it much faster than most because of this.
Yeah. And, Alzheimer's is, predicted 50% of the population, right, in the next decade. And Blue Cross Blue Shield actually in 2019 showed on dementia in their on their charts, basically showing the average age of dementia now is 47. So, we think of it as being an older person condition, although I guess my kids would call me old.
Yeah, mine definitely calls me young because my husband's much older, so that's the key. But yes,
Right.
I hear you. No, I'm 47. I'm there. I'm in the dementia phase. That's so crazy. I feel like I'm 8.
We all have those worries, and for the record, I'm fine with my emotions. Sometimes other people aren't. It's very interesting, that whole journey into that acceptance and just surrendering into the way here. So it is, I think, testament of the love that I lost. So
yeah,
that's what comes from that. And at the same time, it was such a gift. Not the process. Well, I guess the process in some level, but just knowing and having that relationship for a decade was amazing, and has radically informed and changed my life. So what came out of that was this birth of really a focus: neurodegeneration, brain health, and longevity. And, I wrote my book. Here it is, Shake It Off, an integrative approach to Parkinson's solution. So I lay out in there my F.A.N.C. approach to brain regeneration. It's put me in contact and discussion with some just amazing beings on the planet. I've got some really exciting additions that I want to talk to about what I'm doing in there. But that's the kind of the origin story of, well, how did Dr. Eckel become a brain regenerative specialist? It was really out of dire need and my own circumstance. And, I was very motivated, as one would be.
Right. And before that, you had dealt with neurological disorders in your practice.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been in practice 21 years.
Anyway, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And then you just became the utmost expert about it. Obviously.
Yeah, one of them for sure. So we're helping, I talk to people around the globe now with Parkinson's, ALS, multiple system atrophy, Alzheimer's, mild cognitive impairment, dementia, you name it, anything dealing with the brain. We've got a lot of options and a really different approach, which is actually getting real world results.
So in that approach, I know a couple of my so we have clients that refer to us throughout the world, and we've had a lot of clients with this diagnosis of CRPS, contact reflex pain syndrome. I'm sure that's something you deal with as well, correct?
Yes.
And the other side of that is I have so many clients that go to, brain health has become a buzzword like detox was 10 years ago. Like, what clinic can I go to get my brain health? And what I find is a lot of people do a lot of detox, but they don't do a lot of drainage.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to speak about that, given the glial lymph and given the brain dumping. And I mean, we've never spoken about this. I know that you tried my flow presence on a soul, but I'm just curious what your take on that is, just from my knowledge base.
Sure. Well, there's like a stepwise process that has to happen. And in particular with brain health, sleep is integral in that, right? Accessing enough deep sleep every night, which activates the lymphatics and cleanses the brain. So, I talk about it in a Chinese medicine fashion of the word, right? Chinese medicine really works on blood flow, and blood carries the healing properties of the body. It gets your, metabolic waste out of the cells, takes it away, and it brings in oxygen and vitamins, minerals, your whole immune system, all of your hormones, your neurotransmitters, all are transported in the blood. So the blood is a very important pathway and connective tissue to help heal the brain. So, detoxification is very important. Well, what is a major route of elimination is the lymph and the lymph flow. The skin is a major route of elimination. The liver is one of my favorites to focus on. I think a lot of people focus on the colon, which is kind of the end of the line. Of course, we have to get the proverbial shit out, but we also need to also filter the blood. Our liver gets congested, and the pathways, the doors close on that, and then you start recycling toxins, storing them in fat. And then you look at, where do you have a bunch of fat? Well, our brains. We can affectionately call each other fatheads. Our brains are fat, and we store toxins in our fat. So you definitely need to address the detoxification pathways. On the drainage front, I use Picana remedies out of Europe, and diet, lifestyle stuff as well. I do find starting the entryway into that discussion is around sleep, and really tracking your sleep and getting that handled, because that's when the body heals.
And so I know a lot of clients are taking a lot of supplements like omegas and things for their brain, PC liquid, all that. So it's more, obviously, and I know it's a stepwise action step, but if somebody's looking for just general, it's more than just, I'm going to take supplements for my brain. We actually have to drain the brain from its toxic load and supplement.
Well, it depends on the individual, right? Everybody is so unique. So that's really where my fancy approach to addressing neurodegeneration comes up. So the F stands for functional, which is that heart-centered being, treating people. The integrative medicine, I'm a naturopathic physician. I like to say we're the old school integrative practitioners. When we go to conferences around the country or globe, I get a lot of integrative practitioners saying, oh, I really wish I went to naturopathic school. You guys think differently. And we do. We think as we treat people versus the reductionist model of the pieces and parts, or systematic, only addressing the brain. Well, now we're seeing there's the brain and gut axis. Of course, why my walls are yellow behind me, and I live in Portland, Oregon, is that, well, one, that's the color I want to be in February here. But two, it is the spleen and stomach camp in Chinese medicine. So there are different organ network camps of how you address the body and health. It's also the naturopathic principle of, we heal from the gut. You've got to absorb the nutrients in. And so that's in a functional component. And then assessment is the A. And this is the missing piece for so many folks. I see them, they're like, oh, what about, Restore Gold, or, PQQ, or glutathione, or whatever the nootropics or peptides, or, whatever the thing is. If someone has heavy metals, let's say, and in Parkinson's in particular, there's a high percentage of people that have heavy metal burden in their body. Not everybody with neurodegeneration does. But I will say a high percentage has. I've seen cadmium, mercury, arsenic, and lead are the top four that I've been seeing over the years. If that's in there, glutathione is not going to work. It's just not. I saw David Perlmutter. I actually got the chance to share this story with him. I interviewed him for my brain degeneration summit. And he posted a patient with Parkinson's in his clinic when he was in clinical practice down in Florida. He did an IV glutathione push. And it was really nothing next to miraculous. Like, the gentleman had really weak voice, slurred speech, big tremor, inability to walk, the stutter step, gait, all of it, like the full-blown Parkinson's patient picture. And did the glutathione push. And within like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, gentleman was like, had a nice, strong, strident gait. He had balance. He still had to stutter a little bit to turn. And I thought, well, heck, I've been doing IV therapy. I was in practice 5 years at that point. I did a little bit more glutathione with my Parkinson's patients, or patients with Parkinson's, we'll say. And nothing happened. It was like crickets. It was like, did he hire, I
had the same exact experience in our practice. I had the same, like, it would be temporary, right? It was like, you might give it 8 or 9 grams, which costs a freaking arm and a leg. And then might get like an hour or a week or something. It was like they were eating the glutathione up as fast as you could give
the first 5 I saw, nothing happened. And I was like, well, what is this? And I started testing them for heavy metals. It's like, oh, they all have a metal burden. And so we then have to detox the metals. We did chelation to get those out. And then we laid in the protocol, and it actually worked better. But where I'm going with that is we would have never known had we not tested. And with some of these things in particular, we're looking at metals, we look at the microbiome, we're looking at hormones. That's kind of like foundational assessment. And then in the book, I write about, the next tiers of, molecular mimicry of Epstein-Barr and cytomegalo, herpes simplex virus. These things can mimic it. Hypothyroidism, so having thyroid disorder, can mimic Parkinsonism symptoms. And you may be wondering why I'm talking about Parkinson's, right? Well, Sarieah didn't have Parkinson's, but it was Parkinson's has alpha-synuclein, which is a different misfolded protein. And a lot more people have Parkinson's. So I figured, well, let's put what I learned to good use here. I didn't want my suffering to be for naught. So the assessment is one of those things that really helps guide. Now, of course, clinical interview, taking a thorough history is also very important. Any exposures through time, environmentally, to pesticides or metals. But a lot of people say, well, where did I get heavy metals from? It's like, well, if you live in North America, you have metals in your system. When I first started learning about it, I tested everyone and I was like, what do we do with this data? Because everybody has them. It's not necessarily causing you your health problems, though. So some of us can tolerate it more, different genetic platform, different system of traumas growing up or ancestral traumas. So we need to take a look at all of those things. That's in the assessment. So, we will talk about, nerve health. N is the next step in my fancy approach. But that is, it's not a one size fits all.
Mm-hmm. It's very customized. And people have to come physically to you to get all these assessments, or some of them?
No, we're doing a lot, thankfully. I mean, one of the blessings of the day and age is we're doing a lot of remote telemedicine stuff, so we can get started and get some programs going. Eventually we are looking to clear folks for what I call Camp Nature Cures, coming out to the clinic. I haven't figured out how to deliver like hyperbaric oxygen or acupuncture, the photobiomodulation that we have in there, and then or the regenerative therapies that we do at the clinic either. I haven't figured out how to deliver those virtually yet, but I'm working on it. But in the meantime, we're really looking to support people where they are. And then, eventually get them cleared to come out to the clinic. We have people come in from around the globe. We've had very advanced patients have no evidence of disease anymore. I'm not claiming that we're curing Parkinson's by any means. However, we do see it improve where people have no symptoms anymore. And that is different than what you get in conventional land. And, we leave the door open. We we don't provide false hope, but we do have some good testimonials. And in the real world, this stuff can work greatly.
It's amazing because that's such a avenue that we know that there's not a lot of research, as you know, and a lot of hope for people in that world. I mean, I know Klinghardt and my friends in Europe, they've been doing a lot of research with aluminum and all sorts of stuff and heavy metal loads and deposits in the brains and all sorts of things. And it's great to know that there's a place that people can go, they can get assessments, they can start this over the waves of the world and not have to physically be with you, but get going in the right direction. Because if they're concerned about it, what I know is that the fear and, the stress of worrying about that is only actually contributing to lessening our telomeres. And we're going to talk about what telomeres are, because we've never brought up telomeres in the podcast. So let's unpack telomeres since we're there. What's a telomere? You talked about it briefly, but it's the length.
So like, think of it as your shoelaces, right? And your shoelaces are real long when you're young, but as you age, they get very short, and it's harder to tie your shoes as your shoelaces get shorter, right? In fact, and then eventually they just fall off. And that the telomere length is like a zipper or shoelace at the end of the cell. It's on cell replication. So it's how many times your cell can reproduce itself. So when the length of the telomere gets real short, then the cells die. And so there is a theory on death, is that we die when we have no more, no more stem cells and no more telomere length. So that's a piece of the aging puzzle for everybody.
And can you extend your telomeres, or is that a finite thing?
You totally can, and like I mentioned, I measured my telomere length and it said it was 18 years younger. So then my biologic age versus the age of my cells. So that my cells think they're very young, which is nice. And how do you do that? Well, you get information in. I had the great pleasure of having some conversations with Greg Fahey. He's a PhD researcher on longevity. And he's got the 3-drug cocktail on lengthening the lifespan, which is metformin, growth hormone, and DHEA. And he's actually enrolling people in his study. So if anybody out there listening wants to enroll in that study, you're welcome to contact Dr. Greg Fahey, F-A-H-Y. And, it's around, we're having more and more research coming out around, we're actually able to age backwards given the right information. So we've got to get the toxicities out and then keep the toxicities out. Today I'm on day 6 of my own brain and liver detox. So it's something that, me as a physician, I've got to walk my talk. It is a piece of my longevity puzzle, though. If I'm going to make it to 150, I got to take care of myself. And we are exposed to a lot of chemicals in the United States and around the globe. So it is something, it's like any other filter in your body. You got to change it. And so support yourself, support your cell health, and they respond. So you can actually lengthen telomere length.
And I've said for years that biological medicine is the real anti-aging, if you want. I mean, I look at my picture from 25 years ago and I look literally younger now, have more vitality, have more flexibility in every sense of the direction, from my gut to my physical body being more flexible, let alone my mental and my emotional body. And I want that for everybody listening, because I think that this really is, and it does take action. You can't just say, oh, I've arrived. Like, I went and did an IV yesterday at our medical doctor. I did basically a Myers cocktail with extra B vitamins, extra C vitamins, and a little glutathione to boot at the end, because I had a really long week last week. I have a big week coming up this week. I'm traveling. I had one day to care for myself, really. And I was like, okay, I'm going to care for myself, give myself the IV, go home and eat good food and sleep, because I know that sympathetic override, because I feel a lot of drive like you. I feel a lot of passion for what we're doing and getting the word out there and getting it out faster. And so I find, particularly in this last year, I've cared less for myself than I did the previous 3 years, because I feel a bit more of a drive than I had. And I felt myself crash and burn the other day. And I was like, whoa, first of all, if it wasn't for for Flowpresso, I probably would have crashed 6 months ago, but I need to care for myself a little bit more. And I left there and was like, oh my God, I just feel younger. And like, I love getting IVs. They make me feel so good.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's so much to take care of yourself. But I think about what you said in the beginning. I don't know. I know a lot of older people as well. And I know my father at 55 years old, if they had tested his telomeres, because he died at 55 and they said, wow. And he looked like, they said, oh, he was like a 90-year-old. So I'm sure that was the concept of the telomeres that they didn't know then, obviously, that they know now. But I look at it and go, I want to take such good care of my body because I need to, like my car. Like, I don't expect my car that I bought 3.5 years ago to just drive for me. Like, I go and get the oil change and I put new brakes on it. I put new tires on it because it's an investment. I love my car. I can't believe I'm saying that because I'm not a car person, but I bought this stupid car and I freaking love it. I love how it feels. I love the drive. I love the seat, and I want to take care of it because I want it to take care of me. And we say that to our son all the time, take care of your things and your things will be there for you to be taken care of with them. And like, why don't we think about this for our bodies? And it's such an amazing thing to know that there's ways to not only just take care of our bodies, but our brain, because, you know, brawn, what did you say in the beginning? Something about brawn,
my brawn and community.
That's my brain, my brawn. That was great. My brain, my brawn. And I think we too much focus perhaps on brawn.
Yeah. Well, the strength is important for healthy aging. We do need that, but you know, your body isn't very good if you can't remember.
Right.
Yeah.
And have a community around you that to love you through the process.
Right.
Which is where the heart-centered stuff comes in and not get too focused. You're a very balanced individual, Dr. Eckel.
Thanks. Yeah. That's what we're going for. That's actually one of my words for this year.
Balance.
Balance. Yes.
That's awesome. So what are some signs if somebody's noticing like, hey, you know, I mean, obviously you and your wife were skilled practitioners. You started to notice, you're an investigator, you're like, hey, things aren't matching up here. And in a quick amount of time, it was so fast. Obviously it was a little bit probably more overt, but what are typical signs of neurodegeneration that people can look for to know that they should start to take a bit more action?
Well, so some big ones, I mean, one, just to dispel the myth, and I'm sure you've done this before on your show, of like the typical statement of, oh, get used to it, you're getting old. Or, oh, wait a minute, I'm having a senior moment. It's like, no, that's actually neurodegeneration right there. It's not to be made fun of. It's actually an alert, like, hey, wake up, we're out of balance here. So the early signs, so, I mean, as far as Parkinson's goes, 10 to 20 years before any central nervous system signs or symptoms show up, it could be constipation. So constipation is one of the early signs. There's a Brock hypothesis and around what caused Parkinson's disease. And it's Dr. Brock has a hypothesis that alpha-synuclein misfolds in the gut and then travels on the vagus nerve and gets deposited in the brain. And he's done that on mice, showing you cut their vagus nerve and they don't develop Parkinson's disease when they have misfolded alpha-synuclein in their guts. And then when they have a patent vagus nerve, they actually get Parkinson's disease. So it's a rather compelling hypothesis. Mm-hmm. So that loss of sense of smell, this is also a very early trigger. You can get a smell test, a simple smell test, you know, like remember the old scratch and sniff things as we had as kids. Yeah. Well, those are, you know, if you can't smell, one, it could be a zinc deficiency. You could have a chronic infection in your nose, or you could have neuronal cell death in your brain, because it is cranial nerve 1, the olfactory nerve. And if you're not able to smell, that's a significant sign. You can live with it, and we don't typically have any alerts go off, but here I want to educate you to say, no, you need to get that checked, because that could be cell death happening in your brain right now that you can't smell. The third kind of weird sign is, this is what got Alan Alda into the neurologist, was he was acting out his dreams with his wife. So he had like a pillow and he was hitting her with a pillow. He thought when he woke up, he said, oh, I thought I had a sack of potatoes and you were an invader. So I was protecting myself. And they just happened to read, in the paper, like, hey, that could be an early symptom of Parkinson's disease. And he went in, and lo and behold, he had Parkinson's disease. So it is, it could be, those are like early signs and symptoms. Of course, the telltale signs of a tremor, internal tremor, is one of those things that will typically surface first. Or you start falling or tripping. Your foot gets stuck a little bit. That kind of stutter step. These things can come in very slowly. In particular, with other neurodegenerative complaints, it's like looking at word recall, memory issues, walking into the room not remembering what you were going in for. Well, one, that's a symptom of stress, but it could be something more ominous, like mental decline. So I really like, we've brought in a really great device called the WAVI, which is the EEG reader, and within we can look at reaction time. So we can look at head traumas. I've actually put it in on annual exams with my patient base here, because you get an annual look at what is the reaction time of your brain. Because you can really pick up any mild cognitive impairment really early and start taking action towards it. I think one of, just as a kind of if I'm just going to go off the cuff with it, not on the symptom front, but really thinking, when you look at the stats out there on brain degeneration, is the assumption is it's going to happen. And so we need to start preventing it now, like everybody.
Well, and so, we've heard doing crossword puzzles and Sudoku and games and things to keep your brain entertained. That's, of course, one thing. But what do you think about like those biofeedback, the neurological feedbacking?
Yeah, you can. I've been playing with entrainment, like Brain Tap or Mind Alive. These are really cool programs that there is more and more evidence to support their use. They have other benefits as well. Actually the Sound of Soul, putting into more heart coherence and doing that training is another great thing to incorporate, the heart rate variability, tracking that, right? So I track mine with the Oura Ring. There's different ways of tracking it. So, but these are things that if it's not measured, it doesn't change. And so really educating folks that have an interest, or maybe they see their parents going through it. It's like it's time to start taking action now. And it's just baby steps. It's like, you don't have to change your entire life. It's just, you have to get in the game, start getting educated in that F.A.N-C approach, get the assessments done, because that's a crucial piece of it.
I was just going to say, back to our F.A.N-C approach, what's the C? Because we know assessments is important. Nerve health is next. C and Y.
N is nerve health. Yeah. So nerve health is on the different supplements that we kind of rattle those off. And then it's -C, which this is the largest lever that I have discovered, and it's cellular regeneration. And this is on allographic mesenchymal stem cell procedures. I'm so excited about a laser activated and guided stem cell procedure. And I can actually say that in that sentence, because what we do is we activate the V cells in the body. So these V cells, these are very small embryonic, very small human embryonic stem cells, embryonic-like stem cells. So I want to make sure I say it properly. Very small human embryonic-like stem cells. And they're very potent. We just used to think of them as waste products in the body. But gentleman, Dr. Todd, has the patent on it and the process, and basically has shown you can activate them with lasers and then put them back into the body and direct them with the laser back into the body. So it is so exciting, that process. And we're getting great results. Like, really, I mean, like, from way advanced Parkinson's disease within an hour. I mean, it's rather miraculous when you look at it. Treating people with their heart health, pain goes away really quickly with these procedures. So it's an interesting new addition.
It's so amazing to know that the cells communicate with light. right? And
Yes.
how the cells communicate. And I think what we've all gotten to understand is the body electric, which our good friend Dr. Christine just finished that,
Yeah.
or is in the midst of that series, rather, that summit. That's the future of medicine. The future of medicine is frequency and vibrations, because the more we know about the body, the more we know that it needs subtle body energy that needs to shift it, not this massive, huge energies, that it's the subtle body energies that make it all work, really. And it's light and it's frequencies and it's tones and it's sounds and it's the senses taking in, filtering in this information and making the adjustments in the cellular structure that needs to happen. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about that stem cell laser activated and guided procedure, because that's so incredible, so fast. It's great. So what's why?
What's why? Oh no, F.A.N.C. That the C, that's it.
Oh, F.A.N.C.
Yeah, F.A.N.C. That's it.
F.A.N.C. Got it.
Yeah. I guess why is why not do it that way?
Why not? Fancy, why not? Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So your book, I would like to put a link to your book so everybody can buy it. It looks like I definitely would like a copy. It looks like a nice quick read too.
It's a quick read. Yeah. I made it for people to actually read. You know, a lot of these books, I didn't need to create the thick thing that just sits there and nobody reads it. So it's very readable. We'll get you the link, and
perfect.
You know, it lays out the whole process that we talked about here. I talk about some patient successes that we've had. You know, one, I guess I'll give you with Cindy, a patient of mine, traveled from North Carolina. She was very significantly progressed into Parkinsonism, where she, and she's allowed me to share her story. So had a very significant tremor, really stopped walking because she was falling forward and stumbling so much with the locking of the legs. Really, you know, was depressed because she lost function of her body, couldn't get dressed, really stopped shopping. She came out. So we did the preliminary testing and got the terrain settled for her, invited her out to Camp Nature Cures. We went through our regenerative process here. And she called me at the end of the summer here so it took about 8 months. So she's showing slow progress, but at the 8-month mark, she called me and she said, "Doc, my husband told me to slow down walking in the park." And I said, "Wow, Cindy, when's the last time he said that to you?" And she said, "It's been over a decade." Like, she was so ecstatic. Like, she got her full mobility back. Like, you can't even tell that she has the condition anymore. So it is possible. We're living at an amazing time. And that can happen. So we are seeing these things reverse. And we're studying them. We're looking to improve it. That's why I brought in the laser guided and activated procedure. But I'm very hopeful, and we're helping a lot of people.
It's really incredible. The work you do is really so needed and so necessary. And I pray that one day you start teaching what you do as you continue to prove your model, because we need more than just for a handful of practitioners across the world that know what's going on, honestly. Right. I just have one quick question, because it's maybe not quick, but I have a question.
Yes.
It's eating me up inside, so I can't get out of the podcast till we get done with it.
Okay.
What would cause the proteins to fold on themselves like they are? Like, you're calling these folded proteins in the gut. Like, what causes that? Why?
That is the $1 trillion question right there. I ask myself every day. I ask the cells why they're doing that every day. And so we're still looking. So you know, when you start learning about prions, they call them infectious agents, as if it's like a bug coming in to get you, but that's not it at all. It's like a protein gets misfolded. Well, you look at why things misfold in nature, it's for protection. So it may be a protective mechanism to the toxicity that it's exposed to traumas. I do think that there's ancestral trauma related to the misfolding of proteins as a protective mechanism of our organism. You know, you look at loss of memory and what's happening there, and there are some patterns that maybe get elicited there. I do think unresolved traumas are a big piece of the missing puzzle in chronic illness. And it's almost as if the organism, our body and brain, is protecting itself from the memories or the thoughts. And so we just like shut it down.
Right.
And so that may be the level of environmental toxicity exposures. We know in Parkinson's, that's a piece. I definitely know that runs in dementia and Alzheimer's as well, and maybe why we're seeing an increase. So there's a couple I think it's multifactorial as well, but we don't have a great answer for you there. We only discovered the prions in 1987. Stanley Prusiner down at UCSF got a Nobel Prize for discovering these things. He was ridiculed for a good portion of his career because he's like, I see something in here that is not anything that we've seen before. And, all of the bench chemists are saying, oh, you're out of your mind. But he stuck with it. And I'm really glad that he did, because he discovered what it is. It's a misfolded protein, but it doesn't have any genetic material in it. It's kind of an interesting, it's an interesting structure for sure. So there's a lot more to know. Yeah.
Well, of course. And I appreciate that honest answer, because it's always multi-causational. We know that, but it does beg the question, like what you said, is it a protective mechanism? Because as a mammalian, as a mammal, really, that's what the nervous system is designed to do, is keep us in protection. That's what the sympathetic nervous system is designed to do, is keep us in protection. And it's always a microcosm and the macrocosm. And what I see as a somatic therapist, as a body worker, is people are constantly in this folded position. What I try to do is get everybody open up your shoulders, open up your pelvis, open up your chest. And me too. My car accident made me like a bent over U, and I had to open myself up again. And I've been working with this chiropractor in the last literally 6 days. This has been running for me. He has, I have a little bit of a Dowers hump still that we're working through. And so he's got me doing these different exercises. Now he's got me use this roll bar up here on my, the first day we used it in his office, I was like, okay, I want to run away, and I feel safe and fearful and vulnerable at the same time. And I know better, but oh my God, all the emotions. And I say to my husband, like, he wants me to do it 3 minutes at a time. And I'm like, I can get about 30 seconds before I feel the anxiety overcoming my body. And it's truly just from opening this chest wall up because of the vertebrae being compressed. And I have a scar on my head. There was a head injury, all that stuff, and the trauma, right? The trauma set in my body. And I said to Ayn, I'm literally laying there with a stupid thing on my neck going, I feel like I'm in the car accident and I want to run away right now. And that's so weird. And yet it's not weird. Like I say it's weird. Like I know it's true, but that's what my body did. It was trying to protect, to never feel that shock of again. Right. And then different events in my life reinforce that shock. My dad died that same 12-month cycle, blah, 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 blah. So I was primed for this world, my friend, primed to understand it. And I'm so encouraged by the work you're doing, because I would say that for the work that I do, I don't know enough about the brain. And I get to the point where I know I can help drain their lymph. I know we can do that. But for those that are really concerned, I'm so thankful that there's a great outlet for them, because this, not people aren't doing this. Not a lot of people are doing that work. And we applaud you and we thank you. And we're so grateful. And I'm sure we're going to have some people calling Dr. Fahey, because they are going to want to be, I want to be part of that research, because I'll take the HEA and whatever else it was. It all was nominal stuff. So it's great. And I look forward to watching you get younger and younger and more vital.
Yes.
As we live to be 150 together, Dr. Eckel, because we have a lot to do together, I have a feeling.
I love it. I'm glad we added 30 years for you, Kelly. That was great.
I'm psyched, because I am constantly like, can I get it all done? I only have 75 years left. There's a lot of world to see, and a lot of food to taste, and a lot of people to meet, and a lot of fun to be had.
Yes. Oh, it'll be perfect, just however it unrolls.
Yes, that's true. Well, thank you so much. Any parting words for our guests for their brain health or their path in this world?
I think just that component, I think, I'll share, like, just trust that it is unraveling the way that it should. And listen, you got to slow down to listen, and like intently listen. So whatever that means for you, if that means like you're listening to classical music, or maybe you start a mindfulness practice, or you're going to just do some breath work with the kids, whatever the thing is, just start it today. Just small steps are the way to get there.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I always say at the end of my podcast, from our heart to yours. thank you so much for your time and your attention. And for those of you listening, please subscribe and share this with your friends, and make sure you check out Dr. Eckel. He's got lots of different things going on. He has Nature's Clinic, which on Facebook, and we'll put all this in the show notes, but you have your own podcast, naturesclinic.com is his podcast. So please make sure to sign in and subscribe to his podcast, continue to learn the actions you can take so you too can live with us and explore this continued wonderful world that we live in for another 150 years or so. Maybe we'll get extended even more. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, Kelly.